The rain in this part of the city didn't wash things clean. It just made the grime slicker, turning the streets into rivers of oil-slicked water that reflected nothing but darkness. Ethan adjusted his grip on his son's small hand, pulling him closer as the wind tore at them both, whipping rain against their faces like tiny needles. At 29, Ethan felt ancient. His joints ached from 12-hour shifts spent underneath rusted trucks and dying sedans. His knuckles were permanently stained with engine grease that no amount of scrubbing could remove, and his shoulders had developed a permanent hunch from bending over hoods and carrying the weight of survival alone. The oversized mechanic's jacket he wore, donated from a church clothing drive, hung off his lean frame like a tent. He'd lost weight again. Not intentionally. It was just what happened when you chose between feeding yourself and feeding your son. Beside him, Oliver trudged through the rain in his too big yellow raincoat, the one with the hole in the left pocket that Ethan kept meaning to patch. At 5 years old, Oliver was small for his age, but what he lacked in size he made up for in sheer, terrifying intelligence. The boy had been speaking in complete sentences since he was 18 months old. By 3, he was reading engineering manuals Ethan brought home from the library. His preschool teacher had used the term developmentally asynchronous, which was a polite way of saying the kid was operating at a middle school level while still needing help tying his shoes. Oliver's mismatched eyes, one blue as summer sky, one vivid green like deep forest, blinked up through rain-spattered glasses. Those eyes were a genetic signature, a brand that marked him as unmistakably Castellano bloodline. Ethan tried not to think about that most days. Data indicates a 92% chance of localized flooding if this precipitation rate continues, Oliver observed, his small voice cutting through the storm. We should seek shelter. Ethan couldn't help the tired smile that tugged at his lips. That's the plan, little man. Almost there. Their destination was Rosie's Diner, a 24-hour establishment that served terrible coffee and mediocre food, but asked no questions if you ordered one grilled cheese and nursed it for 2 hours. The heat usually worked. The owner, Rosie, a gruff beta in her 60s, had a soft spot for Ethan ever since he'd fixed her truck transmission for free 3 years ago. Ethan pushed open the door. A cheerful little bell jingled above their heads, a sound too bright and innocent for the gray misery of the night. They stepped inside, and the sudden warmth hit Ethan like a physical wall. The air smelled of stale coffee, frying bacon, burnt toast, and damp wool. It wasn't pleasant, but it was dry and warm, and that was enough. Table for 2. The waitress, Sandra, a tired-looking beta with frizzy hair and kind eyes, asked without looking up from her phone. "Please, Sandra," Ethan said, water dripping from his hair onto the worn linoleum floor. "Somewhere in the back. Oliver's got homework. Booth 6, Han, help yourself." Ethan guided Oliver toward the back corner booth, the one with the best view of both the door and the kitchen exit. It was instinct, muscle memory from a life he'd tried to bury 6 years ago. The vinyl seat was patched with duct tape in multiple places, and the table wobbled, but it was theirs for as long as they needed it. They slid in, and Ethan immediately felt the oppressive heat of the overworked heating system. He unzipped his jacket, letting it fall open at his neck. Beneath it, he wore a faded work shirt and heavy coveralls that were too big for him, scavenged from the mechanic shop where he worked for cash under the table. "Okay," Ethan said, exhaling a long breath. He dug into the pocket of his coveralls and pulled out a handful of crumpled bills and loose change. He spread them on the Formica table, his hands moving automatically to sort them by denomination. "Let's see what the budget looks like tonight." Oliver immediately began organizing the coins with the precision of a tiny accountant, his small fingers moving with purpose. He counted in his head for exactly 3 seconds, then looked up. $11.63, Oliver announced. "Accounting for state sales tax of 6%, our purchasing power is approximately $10.94. Ethan's chest tightened with a mixture of pride and heartbreak. His son shouldn't have to calculate sales tax at 5 years old. He should be worrying about cartoons and toys, not whether they could afford protein. "Good job, calculator," Ethan said, reaching across to ruffle Oliver's damp hair. So that's a burger for you and coffee for me. You require caloric intake, Oliver said, frowning in that serious way he had. Your energy expenditure today was elevated. I observe your shift length, 12.3 hours. Insufficient nutrition will compromise your immune function. I had a big lunch at the shop, Ethan lied. He'd had a vending machine candy bar and lukewarm soda. Don't worry about me, kiddo. I'm tough. Iron oxidizes when exposed to moisture and oxygen. Oliver countered, looking pointedly at Ethan's wet jacket. Rust is structurally compromised. You are not invincible, Papa. Ethan's throat tightened. Sometimes Oliver's intelligence was a blessing. The boy could fix almost anything, could solve problems that baffled adults. But sometimes it was a curse, because he saw too much, understood too much about their precarious situation. Just pick a burger, Oliver, Ethan said gently, sliding the laminated menu across the table. Get whatever you want. While Oliver studied the menu with the intensity of a forensic accountant examining financial records, Ethan let his guard drop for just a fraction of a second. He leaned his head back against the worn vinyl of the booth, closing his eyes, letting the warmth of the diner seep into his bones. 6 years. It had been 6 years since he'd vanished into the night. 8 months pregnant and terrified, using every skill he'd ever learned to disappear completely. He remembered the vault, that sterile underground prison that Dante had called protection. He remembered the magnetic locks, the filtered air, the walls closing in day after day until he couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't be anything except a vessel for the child growing inside him. He'd lasted 2 weeks before he'd used a lamp cord to short-circuit the security system and slip past guards he'd personally trained. 2 weeks of sensory deprivation, of being treated like a fragile object instead of the deadly operative he'd been. 2 weeks of begging Dante to let him out, to let him breathe, to let him be human. Dante had never come, had sent guards, sent meals on trays, sent doctors to check on the pregnancy. But he'd never come himself, never listened to Ethan's increasingly desperate pleas. And that's when Ethan had realized Dante's love had become indistinguishable from imprisonment. The birth had been a blur of pain in a cash-only clinic on the south side of Chicago, attended by a midwife who asked no questions and recorded no names. 16 hours of labor in a room that smelled of bleach and desperation. Oliver had come out screaming, tiny fists waving, those mismatched eyes already open and alert, already looking at Ethan with an intelligence that seemed impossible in a newborn. The midwife had asked, "You got someone to help you?" Ethan had lied and said yes. He'd walked out 2 hours later with a newborn, a forged birth certificate listing Eric Morrison as the father, and $70 to his name. He'd chosen the name Oliver because it meant olive tree in Latin, a symbol of peace and endurance. And if Ethan's son was going to survive the life ahead of him, he'd need to be both peaceful and resilient. "I'll have the deluxe cheeseburger," Oliver announced, pulling Ethan from his dark memories. "No pickles. The textural inconsistency is unpleasant, and the acidity interferes with the umami profile of the beef." "No pickles," Ethan confirmed, raising a hand to signal Sandra. "Got it." The diner was relatively quiet for a Thursday night. A trucker snored softly in a front booth, his cap pulled low over his eyes. 2 teenagers sat near the pie display, arguing in hushed tones about something on one of their phones. The jukebox sat silent in the corner, its colored lights cycling through patterns but producing no sound. Then the door opened. It wasn't a loud entrance. The bell jingled the same cheerful sound it had for Ethan and Oliver. But something in the air changed. The atmosphere pressure seemed to drop. A charge entered the room, like the moment before lightning strikes. Every instinct Ethan had spent 6 years trying to suppress suddenly screamed in primal warning. Ethan's body reacted before his mind caught up. His spine went rigid. The hair on his arm stood up. His hand moved automatically toward the utility knife clipped to his belt. It was pure biology, the response of prey, sensing an apex predator entering its territory. Then the scent hit him. It cut through the smell of grease and burnt coffee like a blade, dark and complex and utterly unmistakable. Rainwater on hot pavement, gun oil, leather, and beneath it all, that rich, earthy depth of sandalwood and black musk. It was a scent Ethan knew better than his own, a scent he'd tried to forget for 6 years, a scent that had once meant safety and home and love. Now it just meant danger. Ethan's heart hammered against his ribs in a frantic rhythm. No, 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 no. Not here. Not now. Papa, Oliver whispered, his voice barely audible. His small hand found Ethan's onto the table. Your heart rate just elevated significantly. Autonomic nervous system response indicates perceived threat. Are we in danger? Quiet. Ethan breathed, his lips barely moving. Drink your water. Just look at your placemat. Don't look up. Ethan shifted his eyes, using the reflection in the dark window beside their booth. He could see them. 4 figures had entered. 3 were large men in expensive suits, moving with the professional awareness of high-end security. They checked the exits with practiced efficiency, assessed every person in the diner, their hands hovering near concealed weapons. And in the center of them stood Dante Castellano. 6 years hadn't softened him. If anything, time had carved him from granite. He seemed taller than Ethan remembered, or maybe Ethan just felt smaller now. Dante wore a black wool trench coat that probably cost more than Ethan made in 3 months. The collar was turned up against the storm. His dark hair was slicked back from the rain, and there were new lines around his eyes, not from laughter, but from the weight of the empire he controlled. But it was his face that made Ethan's breath catch. That devastatingly handsome face that had once looked at Ethan with adoration, with desire, with possessive intensity. Now it was a mask of cold indifference, scanning the diner with the detached interest of a man checking his kingdom. There were silver threads at Dante's temples now, premature gray that made him look distinguished rather than old. He moved with absolute confidence, the way alphas did when they owned everything and everyone around them. Ethan's hands gripped the edge of the table so hard his knuckles turned white. What was he doing here? This was the edge of Chicago, the forgotten South Side slums where desperate people came to be invisible. Dante operated from gleaming high-rises in the Loop, from private clubs and secured compounds in Lake Forest. He had no business in a place like Rosie's Diner unless he was meeting someone who couldn't be seen in the daylight. Dante moved to a large corner booth on the opposite side of the diner, diagonal for where Ethan sat frozen. He didn't look around at the other patrons. To Dante, the people in this diner were just scenery, irrelevant extras in his world. He slid into the booth, his back to the wall. The same tactical positioning Ethan had taught him a lifetime ago. His 3 guards positioned themselves strategically, one by the door, one near the kitchen, one standing behind Dante's booth. Ethan felt bile rise in his throat. He was 20 feet away from the man he'd once called husband, from the man who'd likely spent years hunting him. 20 feet away from the father Oliver had never known. Papa, Oliver said again, his voice dropping to that conspiratorial whisper he used when he was analyzing something. The gentleman in the black coat. His suit is bespoke, likely Italian wool. Brioni, possibly chiton. His shoes are Berluti, handmade. Conservative estimate, $12,000 in attire. The 3 bodyguards are maintaining a diamond formation, standard executive protection pattern, but the one near the door has a shoulder holster bulge, Glock 19, most likely. The one by the kitchen keeps touching his earpiece, active comms. This is a high-value target requiring mobile security. Ethan closed his eyes briefly. Of course, his genius 5-year-old son would catalog every detail. Oliver, please stop analyzing the dangerous men. I'm not analyzing them, Oliver corrected, pushing his glasses up his nose. I'm gathering tactical data. The man in the coat looked at us, Papa, for exactly 2.3 seconds. Then he looked away. Then the guard with the scar, the one by the door, touched his earpiece and looked at us again. We have been marked as persons of interest. Ice flooded Ethan's veins. What? Observational data suggests we triggered recognition or suspicion in at least one member of their group. Statistical probability of... Stop, Ethan said sharply, though he kept his voice low. His hand moved to the pocket of his coveralls where he'd stashed the heavy steel wrench he always carried. It was pathetic defense against trained killers with guns, but it was better than nothing. Oliver, listen to me very carefully. If I tell you to run, you run. You go out the back door by the kitchen, turn left into the alley, and you run to Mrs. Rodriguez's apartment. You remember where that is? 2 blocks west, 3 blocks north, apartment 4B, Oliver recited. But Papa, evacuation seems premature. We have not yet received our food order, and... Here you go, hon. Sandra appeared, sliding a plastic basket with a massive cheeseburger and fries onto the table. She set down a mug of black coffee for Ethan. Can I get you anything else? Just the check, Ethan said, keeping his head down. Please, Sandra. Right away. Sandra raised an eyebrow, but pulled a slip from her apron and placed it face down on the table. You okay, Ethan? You look pale. Just tired. Long day. She didn't look convinced, but she was too experienced a waitress to push. You holler if you need anything. Ethan waited until she walked away, then leaned across the table. Oliver, you eat that burger as fast as you safely can. 3 minutes. Then we're leaving. But you said we could stay until... Plans changed. Oliver looked at him for a long moment, those mismatched eyes far too knowing for a child. Then he nodded and picked up the burger with both hands, taking a large, methodical bite. Ethan risked another glance toward Dante's booth. The alpha was sitting with his back to the wall, staring at the door with an expression of cold patience. He'd pulled out a silver cigarette case, the same one Ethan had given him 7 years ago as a birthday gift, and was tapping it against the table in a familiar rhythm. Tap, tap, pause, tap. It was the sound of Dante thinking, calculating, waiting. The door opened again. A nervous-looking man in a hooded sweatshirt entered, glancing around furtively before hurrying to Dante's booth. He sat down without being invited, leaning forward to speak in urgent whispers. A meeting. That's all this was. Dante was here for business, for some low-level informant or dealer who'd been summoned to this neutral ground. He didn't know Ethan was here. He couldn't possibly. This meat is overcooked, Oliver announced, his voice carrying through the quiet diner with perfect clarity. Ethan's heart stopped. Several heads turned, including one of Dante's guards. Oliver, Ethan hissed. Inside voice. But Papa, it is overcooked, Oliver insisted, his tone perfectly reasonable and completely audible. The proteins are denatured to the point of rubber, and the bun has absorbed too much atmospheric moisture, compromising its structural integrity. This is objectively substandard food preparation. From the corner of his eye, Ethan saw the guard by the door, the one with the scar on his neck, turn fully toward their booth. The man's hand moved to his earpiece. Oliver, Ethan said, grabbing his son's arm gently but firmly. We're leaving. Now. He threw a 10 and 3 ones onto the table, almost all the money he had, and stood up, pulling Oliver with him. He kept his body angled away from Dante's booth, his head down, shoulders hunched, trying to make himself as small and unremarkable as possible. Just another beaten-down worker. Nobody important. Nobody dangerous. Nobody worth noticing. They made it 3 steps toward the door. Wait. The word was quiet. Not shouted, not aggressive. Just a single syllable spoken in a deep baritone that vibrated in Ethan's chest like a struck bell. It was a voice accustomed to absolute obedience, a voice that could stop men in their tracks with a whisper. Ethan's body betrayed him. Years of conditioning, of responding to that voice in bed and in battle, made him freeze mid-step. His muscles locked. His breath caught. Don't turn around. Don't turn around. Run. Grab Oliver and run. But his body wouldn't obey. You, Dante said, and there was something in his tone now, not quite recognition, but curiosity. Interest. Turn around. The diner had gone silent. The trucker had woken up. The teenagers had stopped arguing. Even the kitchen sounds had ceased. Everyone was watching. Ethan's hand tightened on Oliver's wrist. He could feel his son's pulse, steady and strong, trusting. Oliver wasn't scared. He didn't understand what was happening. Papa, Oliver whispered, should I initiate evacuation protocol Delta? Despite everything, Ethan almost smiled. Evacuation protocol Delta was something they practiced. If Ethan said the word Delta, Oliver was supposed to drop to the floor and crawl to the nearest exit. They'd never had to use it. Ethan had hoped they never would. Not yet, Ethan murmured. Then, squaring his shoulders and lifting his chin, he turned around. Dante was standing now. He'd risen from the booth, towering over the nervous informant who'd shrunk back into the seat. Dante's full attention was focused on Ethan with an intensity that was almost physical. At first, there was nothing. Dante just saw a mechanic in dirty clothes, someone who dared to walk away while he was conducting business. The coveralls were baggy and stained. Ethan's hair was too long and unkempt, falling into his eyes. He'd lost so much weight that his face was sharper, more angular. The grease and grime obscured his features. But Dante was nothing if not observant. Ethan watched those storm-gray eyes narrow, scanning him with the attention to detail that had made Dante one of the most dangerous men in Chicago. Dante's gaze traveled up from the work boots, past the baggy coveralls, up to the neck where the collar was open, revealing a faint white scar running along the collarbone, a souvenir from a knife fight 8 years ago. A fight where Ethan had taken a blade meant for Dante. A fight that had left a permanent mark. Dante's eyes locked onto that scar. His pupils dilated. Then his gaze moved to Ethan's face, and Ethan saw the exact moment recognition hit. It was like watching a building collapse in slow motion. Dante's expression cracked. Just for a second, shock, disbelief, something that looked almost like pain flashing across those controlled features before the mask came back up. But his body betrayed him. Dante took a step back, his hip hitting the table. His hand reached out blindly, knocking over the water glass. It shattered on the floor, water and glass spreading across the tile. None of his guards moved to clean it. They were all staring at their boss, who was staring at the ghost who just walked out of his nightmares. Beneath the motor oil and sweat, beneath the cheap soap and rain, Dante could smell it now. That fundamental scent that no amount of disguise could hide. Rain-soaked cedar and cold steel. His Omega. The Omega he'd mourned. The Omega he'd buried in an empty grave. The Omega who'd haunted his dreams for 6 long years. Ethan, Dante breathed. The name came out broken, barely audible. But in the silence of the diner, everyone heard it. Ethan said nothing. He just stood there, one hand protectively in front of Oliver, the other hovering near his belt. He looked at the man he'd loved, the man he'd feared, the man he'd run from. And he felt nothing but a cold, calculating calm. "Hello, Dante," Ethan said. His voice was steady, hardened by 6 years of scraping by, of raising a child alone, of becoming someone else entirely. "You look well." Dante's eyes went to Oliver then, to the small boy in the yellow raincoat, standing half-hidden behind Ethan's leg, to the mismatched eyes that were a genetic impossibility, a signature that ran in only one bloodline. One blue eye, one green eye, the heterochromia that marked every Castellano for 3 generations. Dante made a sound that was half gasp, half sob. He took another step, then stopped, as if afraid that moving too quickly would shatter the illusion. Dante couldn't finish the sentence. His hand was shaking. The most powerful alpha in Chicago, the man who'd ordered executions without blinking, who controlled politicians and police with equal ease, looked like he'd been shot in the chest. "His name is Oliver," Ethan said, pulling his son closer. "And you need to stay away from him." The words hung in the air like a blade. Dante's eyes moved between Ethan and the boy, his son, the child he'd never known existed. Ethan could see the calculations happening behind those eyes. Oliver was 5 years old. Ethan had disappeared 6 years ago, 8 months pregnant. The math was unavoidable. "You were pregnant," Dante said, his voice hoarse. "When you ran. You were carrying, and you never. I thought you were dead. I found a car. I found blood. DNA. I buried you, Ethan. I mourned you for 6 years." "I know," Ethan said quietly. "I'm very good at my job. You know that. If I don't want to be found, I'm not found." 6 years. Dante's voice was rising now, anger bleeding through the shock. 6 years, you let me think. You let me believe. He couldn't seem to finish any of his sentences. His hands clenched into fists at his sides. "I have a son. I have a son, and you kept him from me. I protected him." Ethan shot back, steel entering his voice. "From your wars. From your enemies. From being locked in underground vaults because you were too paranoid to let anyone breathe free air. I gave him a childhood, Dante. A real one. Not some gilded cage where he'd be a pawn in your empire. He's a Castellano, Dante said, and there was something raw and desperate in his voice now. He belongs. He belongs with me. Ethan interrupted. He's happy. He's safe. He doesn't need your world. Dante looked at the boy again. Oliver had stepped out from behind Ethan, adjusting his glasses, regarding Dante with open curiosity rather than fear. You're very tall, Oliver observed. Approximately 6 feet 4 inches. Your suit jacket is cut to conceal a shoulder holster, but the drape is imperfect on the left side. You're right-handed. Your watch is a Patek Philippe Nautilus. Retail value approximately $100,000. Your net worth is likely in excess of. Oliver, Ethan said gently. Maybe don't, but Dante was staring at the boy with something like wonder. He talks like he thinks like you, Ethan finished. Yes, he's brilliant. Terrifyingly so. He reads engineering manuals for entertainment. He can calculate trajectories in his head. He took apart our toaster and built a radio out of the parts when he was 4. Dante took a step forward. His guards shifted nervously, unsure how to handle this situation. Their boss was unraveling in front of them, and they had no protocol for this. Oliver, Dante said softly. That's a strong name. It means olive tree, a symbol of peace. I know, Oliver said. Papa told me. Are you the man who makes Papa have nightmares? The question was so direct, so innocently brutal, that Dante actually flinched. Ethan closed his eyes briefly. Oliver, you are, Oliver continued, tilting his head. Papa says your name sometimes when he's sleeping. He sounds scared. I have calculated that his REM cycle disruptions correlate with. We're leaving, Ethan said, grabbing Oliver's hand firmly. Come on. You're not going anywhere, Dante said, and there it was, the command, the authority, the alpha dominance that had once made Ethan feel safe and eventually made him feel smothered. Ethan turned back, and this time there was fire in his eyes. Watch me. One of the guards, the big one with the scar, moved to block the door. His hand went to his jacket. Ethan moved before the man could draw. Years of training, of surviving on the streets, of being more than just a mechanic came flooding back. He crossed the distance in 3 steps, grabbed the guard's wrist with one hand while using his other to strike the man's elbow joint. The guard's arm bent at an unnatural angle, and Ethan used the momentum to slam the man's hand, still holding the gun, into the doorframe. The gun clattered to the floor. The guard howled. Ethan stepped back, his utility knife now in his hand, the blade gleaming under the fluorescent lights. He was breathing hard, and there was something wild in his eyes, something that reminded everyone in that diner that before he was a mechanic, before he was an Omega, he'd been one of the deadliest operatives in Dante's organization. I said, Ethan repeated, his voice low and dangerous, we're leaving. The other guards reached for their weapons. Dante raised a hand, stopping them. Stand down, Dante ordered. He was staring at Ethan with an expression that was hard to read, part anger, part admiration, part something that looked almost like desire. All of you stand down. The guards hesitated, then obeyed, though they kept their hands near their weapons. Dante took a slow breath, visibly struggling to regain control. When he spoke again, his voice was calmer, though no less intense. You're right, he said. You can leave. I won't stop you. But Ethan, he paused, those storm-gray eyes boring into him. I will find you again. You know I will. And next time, we're going to talk. Really talk. About what happened. About our son. About his voice caught. About everything. There's nothing to talk about, Ethan said, but his voice wavered slightly. There's 6 years to talk about, Dante countered. 6 years of thinking you were dead. 6 years of an empty bed and unanswered questions. 6 years of wondering what I did wrong, how I could have saved you. He took a breath. And there's him. He looked at Oliver again, something like wonder and pain mixing in his expression. There's my son, who I never got to hold, never got to meet. You can hate me, Ethan. You can run from me. But don't run from giving him the chance to know his father. Ethan's hand trembled slightly. This was the Dante he remembered from before the paranoia, before the vault, before everything fell apart. The Dante who'd been his partner, his equal, his love. But that Dante had also been the one who'd locked him underground, who'd made protection indistinguishable from imprisonment. If you want a relationship with him, Ethan said slowly, it's on my terms. No cages, no guards, no underground prisons. We meet in public. We keep it civil. And if I ever feel like you're trying to control us, trying to own us, I disappear again. And this time, you'll never find us. Dante looked like he wanted to argue, to command, to demand. But something in Ethan's eyes stopped him. He saw the steel there, the absolute certainty. Ethan wasn't the frightened Omega who'd been locked in a vault. He was iron now, forged in the fire of survival. Your terms, Dante agreed quietly. He pulled a card from his pocket, thick, expensive cardstock with embossed lettering. My private number, the one that goes directly to me, not my security. Call me when you're ready. He held it out. Ethan hesitated, then took it, careful not to let their fingers touch. Come on, Oliver, Ethan said, backing toward the door while keeping Dante and his guards in sight. Goodbye, Oliver said politely to Dante. You have excellent taste in timepieces. The Patek Philippe Nautilus is a sound investment. However, your security formation has critical vulnerabilities. The guard near the kitchen has inadequate sight lines to the rear exit, and your personal positioning in the booth, while tactically sound for observing the entrance, leaves you exposed to attacks from the kitchen staff entrance. You should consider revising your protocols. Dante's lips twitched, almost a smile. I'll take that under advisement. Ethan pulled Oliver out into the rain. The storm hit them like a wall, cold and harsh, but Ethan barely felt it. His heart was hammering. His hands were shaking. He just faced down the man who'd once owned him, body and soul, and he'd walked away. They made it 3 blocks before Ethan had to stop, leaning against a brick wall, breathing hard. Papa, Oliver said, tugging at his sleeve. Your heart rate is elevated. Are you experiencing cardiac distress? No, baby, Ethan managed. Just processing. The man in the diner was my biological father, Oliver said. It wasn't a question. Ethan looked down at his son's serious face. Yes. Did he hurt you? It's complicated. That is an insufficient answer, Oliver said. Binary systems require clear parameters. Did he cause you harm? Yes or no? Ethan crouched down, bringing himself to eye level with his son. He loved me, he said slowly. Very much. But his love, it got confused with fear and control. He wanted to protect me so badly that he forgot I needed to breathe. Does that make sense? Oliver thought about this. Like putting a bird in a cage to keep it safe from predators, but forgetting that birds need to fly. Exactly like that. Will we see him again? Ethan looked at the card in his hand. Dante's private number. A lifeline or a trap. He wasn't sure which. Maybe, he said. If we do, it'll be our choice. Not his. Okay. Oliver nodded. Then, with the abrupt subject change only a 5-year-old could manage, he said, I'm still hungry. That burger was inadequate. Despite everything, Ethan laughed. It was a broken, slightly hysterical sound, but it was real. Come on, he said, standing and taking Oliver's hand. Let's go home. I think I have ramen. As they walked through the rain-soaked streets of Chicago's South Side, Ethan didn't look back at the diner. He didn't see Dante standing at the window, watching them disappear into the darkness, his hand pressed against the glass. He didn't see the way Dante's shoulders shook with silent sobs, 6 years of grief and loss and desperate hope finally breaking through his iron control. He didn't see the way Dante pulled out his phone with shaking hands and made a call. Find out everything, Dante said into the phone, his voice rough. Where they live, where he works, every detail. But don't approach. Don't let them know they're being watched. His voice broke. I need to know they're safe, that they have what they need. Do it quietly. If Ethan finds out, I'll lose them again. He hung up. He stared out at the rain. His son. He had a son, and he lost 6 years he could never get back. But he'd found them now, and Dante Castellano didn't lose things he cared about. Not anymore. Part 2. Iron forged in fire. 3 days after the encounter at Rosie's diner, Ethan woke up to find an envelope under his apartment door. It was thick, expensive paper, the kind that screamed money. There was no return address, no marking except for his first name written in Dante's distinctive angular script on the front. Ethan stared at it for a long moment before opening it. Inside was a check, not a small one. The number had enough zeros that Ethan had to count them twice. $50,000. And a note, written in that same angular script. For Oliver. For everything I missed. No strings. No expectations. Just please, let him have what he needs. D. Ethan sat down hard on the threadbare couch. $50,000. It was more money than he'd seen in his entire life. It was 6 months of rent. It was medical care. It was toys and books and clothes that actually fit. It was security. It was also a leash disguised as generosity. Ethan picked up his phone and dialed the number on the card Dante had given him. It rang once. Ethan. Dante's voice was rough, like he hadn't slept. You got it. I got it, Ethan confirmed. And I'm not cashing it. Silence. Then why not? Because money is how you control people, Ethan said. Money creates obligation. Debt. Once I take your money, you own a piece of me again. And I'm not for sale, Dante. It's not about control, Dante said, and he sounded frustrated. It's not a transaction. Ethan, I've seen where you live. Ice flooded Ethan's veins. You're having me followed. I needed to know you were safe, Dante said, not even bothering to deny it. That building you're in, it's a fire trap. The wiring is from the 1950s. There are drug dealers operating out of the second floor. The lock on your door could be picked by a child. How am I supposed to sleep knowing my son is living in a place like that? He's been living there for 3 years, and he's fine. Ethan shot back. We don't need your money. You're eating ramen for dinner 4 nights a week, Dante countered. Oliver's wearing clothes from thrift stores. His glasses are held together with tape. Don't tell me you don't need help. How do you? Ethan's voice was shaking now. How much are you watching us? Enough to know you're struggling, Dante said quietly. Enough to know you're working 12-hour shifts at a garage that pays you under the table for half of minimum wage. Enough to know you've skipped meals so Oliver can eat. I'm not trying to control you, Ethan. I'm trying to help. I don't want your help, Ethan said through gritted teeth. I want my privacy. I want you to stop stalking us. I can't do that. Then we're done. Ethan moved to hang up. Wait, Dante said quickly. Please, can we meet? Somewhere public, like you said. Just talk. No guards. No pressure. Just give me 1 hour. Ethan closed his eyes. Every instinct screamed at him to say no, to hang up, to run. But there was something in Dante's voice, not the commanding alpha, but the broken man who'd watched his family walk out of a diner. And there was Oliver to consider. His son, who'd asked about his biological father 3 times in the past 2 days. Who'd looked up Castellano on the library computer and found articles about Dante's legitimate businesses, his philanthropy, his power. Who'd asked, with that devastating childhood innocence, if my father is rich, why do we live in the bad building? 1 hour, Ethan finally said. Tomorrow, 3 p.m., Millennium Park by the Bean. The public one with the playground. I'll bring Oliver. I'll be there, Dante said. The relief in his voice was palpable. Thank you. Ethan hung up without saying goodbye. He looked at the check in his hands. $50,000. A fortune. A trap. He tore it in half. Then he tore it again. And again. Until it was confetti in his hands. Unsalvageable. If Dante wanted to be in their lives, he'd have to do it without buying his way in. The next afternoon, Ethan and Oliver arrived at Millennium Park 15 minutes early. It was a cold but clear day, the kind of autumn afternoon where the sun was bright but gave no warmth. Ethan had dressed Oliver in his best clothes, which meant jeans without holes and a sweater from the donation box that almost fit. He'd even tried to comb down Oliver's perpetually messy hair, though it had rebelled within minutes. Are you nervous, Papa? Oliver asked, swinging Ethan's hand as they walked past the reflective surface of Cloud Gate. A little, Ethan admitted. Your cortisol levels are elevated, Oliver observed. I can smell it, and your grip strength has increased by approximately 40%. You are experiencing stress. You don't miss anything, do you? Observation is the foundation of scientific method, Oliver said seriously. Then, is Dante, is he dangerous? Ethan stopped walking. He crouched down, taking both of Oliver's hands in his. He's dangerous to bad people, Ethan said carefully. But he would never, ever hurt you. Whatever else he is, he's your father. And he already loves you more than you can imagine. How could he love me? Oliver asked, tilting his head. He doesn't know me. Because you're his son, Ethan said simply. And sometimes love doesn't need reasons. They found a bench near the playground with a clear view of the path. Ethan sat down, pulling Oliver onto his lap despite the boy's protest that he was too old for laps. At exactly 3 p.m., Dante appeared. He was alone as promised. No guards flanking him. No armored car idling nearby. He wore dark jeans and a leather jacket over a simple gray Henley. The most casual Ethan had ever seen him. His hair wasn't slicked back, but fell naturally, slightly messy from the wind. He looked younger like this, more like the Dante that Ethan had fallen in love with before the Empire and the power had consumed everything. He spotted them on the bench, and his steps faltered. He looked terrified, Ethan realized. This man who commanded armies of men with a word, who negotiated with criminals and politicians with equal ease, was terrified of a 5-year-old boy. "Hi," Dante said as he approached. His hands were shoved in his pockets, shoulders slightly hunched. It was the least threatening posture Ethan had ever seen him adopt. "Hi," Ethan replied. Dante's eyes went to Oliver. "Hello, Oliver." "Greetings," Oliver said formally. "Your outfit today is significantly less costly than your previous ensemble. The leather jacket is high quality, but not designer. The jeans are department store brand. You are attempting to appear non-threatening through wardrobe selection. It's a sound psychological tactic." Dante's lips twitched. "Is he always like this?" "Always," Ethan confirmed. "Can I?" Dante gestured to the bench. "Can I sit?" Ethan nodded. Dante sat down on the far end, maintaining careful distance. He looked at Oliver with an expression of wonder and pain and something that might have been fear. "I don't really know how to do this," Dante admitted. "I've negotiated with cartels and senators, but I have no idea how to talk to a 5-year-old. "You could start with asking questions," Oliver suggested. "Information exchange is the basis of communication." "Okay," Dante said. "What do you like to do?" "I enjoy engineering, mathematics, physics, and chemistry," Oliver replied promptly. "I'm currently studying fluid dynamics and attempting to build a water filtration system for our apartment because the municipal supply contains concerning levels of lead." Dante's expression darkened. He looked at Ethan. "Lee, it's an old building," Ethan said defensively. "We boil the water." "That doesn't remove lead," Oliver interjected. "Boiling only removes biological contaminants. Heavy metals require mechanical or chemical filtration. I've been researching activated carbon systems, but they're cost-prohibitive at retail prices. I'm attempting to construct one using materials from the hardware store, but I lack the proper. I'll have a filtration system installed tomorrow," Dante interrupted. "State-of-the-art. The building owner won't object once they understand the alternative is a lawsuit for negligence." "You can't just," Ethan started. "I can," Dante said, meeting his eyes. "And I will. That's non-negotiable, Ethan. My son isn't drinking lead-contaminated water." There was steel in his voice, the alpha dominance that used to make Ethan feel protected and now just made him bristle. But before he could argue, Oliver spoke up. "That would be acceptable. Thank you. Papa has been worried about the water quality, though he doesn't verbalize it. His internet search history includes multiple queries about lead poisoning symptoms in children. He checks my cognitive function tests weekly." Dante's jaw clenched. He looked at Ethan with something like anguish. "You've been worried he was being poisoned." "I've been managing," Ethan said tightly. "Like I've managed everything else." "You shouldn't have to just manage," Dante said quietly. "Not alone. I'm not alone," Ethan shot back. "I have Oliver. He's 5 years old, Ethan. He shouldn't be your support system." "That's—" Dante caught himself, visibly swallowing whatever he'd been about to say. He took a breath. "I'm sorry. I'm not trying to criticize. I just—" I see what you've been dealing with, and it kills me that I wasn't there. That I didn't know. You didn't know because I didn't tell you, Ethan said. That was my choice. Because I gave you no choice, Dante countered. Because I locked you in a vault and treated you like property. I know that, Ethan. I've had 6 years to think about it, and I know I destroyed what we had. I was so terrified of losing you that I made sure you'd leave. I didn't think you'd die. I thought. His voice cracked. I thought I'd find you. Eventually. I thought I'd have a chance to fix it. Silence stretched between them. Oliver looked back and forth between his parents, processing. The water filtration system would be beneficial, Oliver finally said. I accept your offer. However, I have conditions. Dante blinked, then smiled slightly. You negotiate, just like your papa. Condition 1, Oliver said, holding up a finger. You provide schematics and specifications for the system. I wish to understand its operation. Done, Dante said. Condition 2, you teach me about your work. Not the illegal aspects, Oliver clarified, seeing Ethan tense. But the logistics, supply chain management, security protocols, organizational hierarchy. These are applicable skills. Dante looked at Ethan, silently asking permission. Ethan wanted to say no, wanted to keep his son away from everything Dante represented. But he saw the excitement in Oliver's eyes, the hunger for knowledge, and he couldn't quite bring himself to crush it. Age-appropriate discussions only, Ethan said, and I'm present for all of them. Agreed, Dante said quickly. Anything else? Condition 3, Oliver said. You don't make Papa cry anymore. His REM sleep disruptions correlate with mentions of you. Fix that. Dante's expression crumbled. He looked at Ethan with devastation in his eyes. I give you nightmares. Not you, Ethan said quietly. The vault. Being locked up. I have PTSD. It's getting better, but some nights are harder than others. God, Ethan, Dante breathed. I'm so sorry. I don't need apologies, Ethan interrupted. I need you to understand that I can't go back to that. Ever. If we do this, if you're in our lives, it's on the condition that you never, ever try to control me again. No tracking. No guards I don't agree to. No decisions made for me. I'm not your possession, Dante. I'm your equal, or I'm nothing. Dante leaned forward, elbows on his knees, hands clasped. He looked at the ground for a long moment. I was raised in a world where power meant control, he said finally. Where loving someone meant owning them. Where showing weakness got you killed. I tried to unlearn that with you, but when you got pregnant, when you became vulnerable, everything my father taught me came roaring back. I reverted to type. I became exactly what I'd sworn I'd never be. He looked up, meeting Ethan's eyes. I've spent 6 years in therapy trying to figure out why I did what I did. Why I couldn't just let you be free, even though I knew it was killing you. My therapist says it's trauma response. Control as a protection mechanism. But that's just an explanation, not an excuse. I hurt you. I traumatized you. And I don't know how to fix that. You can't fix it, Ethan said. You can only not do it again. I won't, Dante swore. I swear to you, on anything you want, on my life, on my business, on my name, I won't trap you again. You want to leave right now, take Oliver and never see me again? I'll let you. I'll rip my heart out, but I'll let you go if that's what you need. I don't want to run, Ethan said, surprising himself. I'm tired of running. I just want to know that I can if I need to. You can, Dante said. Always. I'll never stop you. Oliver had been listening to this exchange with rapt attention. Now he slid off Ethan's lap and walked over to Dante. He stood in front of the Alpha, studying him with those mismatched eyes. You are experiencing significant emotional distress, Oliver observed. Elevated heart rate, dilated pupils, tremor in your hands. You are afraid. Terrified, Dante admitted. I'm afraid you'll hate me. Both of you. I do not hate you, Oliver said. I lack sufficient data to form a strong emotional attachment in either direction. However, Papa does not hate you either. He experiences complex emotional responses in your presence. Fear, anger, but also, he tilted his head, residual affection. His heart rate elevates, but his sense softens. His pupils dilate. These are indicators of attraction. Fascinating. Oliver, Ethan's face went red. I am merely reporting observational data. Oliver said innocently. Dante was trying very hard not to smile. Is that so? Do not, Ethan warned, pointing at Dante. Encourage him. But it was too late. Oliver had already climbed onto the bench next to Dante, peering at him with scientific interest. May I examine your heterochromia? The genetic expression in your iris structure is identical to mine. I wish to document it. Dante looked helplessly at Ethan, who just shrugged. He's part scientist, part detective, part nightmare. Get used to it. I'm getting that, Dante said, but he let Oliver peer into his eyes, let the boy's small hands turn his face this way and that, and there was wonder in his expression. This was his son, his brilliant, strange, perfect son. The pigmentation pattern is fascinating, Oliver murmured. The heterochromia is complete, not sectoral. Green in the left eye appears to be. Oliver, Ethan interrupted gently. Maybe Dante didn't come here to be a science experiment. Actually, Dante said softly, I don't mind. They spent the next hour in the park. Dante bought them hot chocolate from a vendor, the good kind, with real cream and a pinch of cinnamon. Oliver demonstrated his latest invention, a small mechanical toy he'd built from scavenged parts, explaining the gear ratios and torque calculations while Dante listened with genuine interest. Ethan watched them, his heart doing complicated things in his chest. This was dangerous, this feeling of almost rightness, of almost family. He couldn't trust it, couldn't let his guard down. But seeing Oliver's face light up as Dante asked intelligent questions about his work, seeing Dante's careful gentleness with the son he'd just met, it made something in Ethan's chest crack open. As the sun started to set and the temperature dropped, Dante walked them to the park entrance near Michigan Avenue. Can we do this again? He asked. Same time next week? Ethan hesitated. Oliver, what do you think? I would find that acceptable, Oliver said. However, I have compiled a list of topics I wish to discuss, primarily concerning advanced mathematics and your security infrastructure. Papa says I'm not allowed to hack into government databases, but surely corporate networks are acceptable educational targets. Absolutely not, Ethan and Dante said simultaneously. They looked at each other, almost smiled. We're in trouble with this one, Dante said. You have no idea, Ethan replied. There was a moment, brief, fragile, where their eyes held, where the years and the hurt fell away, and there was just them, the memory of what they'd been. Then Oliver tugged Ethan's hand. We should go, Papa. You have work in the morning, and I have 3 chapters of thermodynamics to complete. Right, Ethan said, breaking eye contact. We should, yeah. Next week, Dante said. It wasn't a question. Next week, Ethan agreed. As they walked away toward the Red Line station, Oliver looked up at him. I like him. Yeah. Yes. He's intelligent, respectful, and he looks at you like you're the most important thing in the world. That's Oliver searched for words. That's good data. Statistically, relationships with high mutual regard have greater stability. We don't have a relationship, Ethan said. We're just figuring things out. You're courting, Oliver said matter-of-factly. I've read about it. The extended eye contact, the softening of vocal tones, the way you both unconsciously mirror each other's body language. It's a pre-bonding behavioral pattern. You're 5, Ethan said weakly. How do you know these things? I read your psychology textbooks when you weren't looking, Oliver said. They were quite informative. Ethan decided he needed to start locking his books away, or maybe just accept that his son was smarter than him and always would be. That night, for the first time in months, Ethan didn't have nightmares. Over the next 3 months, their weekly meetings became routine. Dante never pushed, never demanded more than what Ethan was willing to give. They met in public places, the park, the Harold Washington Library, once the Museum of Science and Industry, where Oliver spent 4 hours explaining quantum mechanics to Dante using the interactive displays. Slowly, carefully, trust began to rebuild. Dante proved his sincerity in small ways. He had the water filtration system installed as promised, but he also had the building's wiring updated, anonymously, through a shell company, so the landlord wouldn't know it was him. He started a college fund for Oliver, but he put it in Ethan's name with complete control. No strings, no obligations. He never showed up unannounced, never sent guards to watch them. When Ethan asked him to stop the surveillance, Dante did, and proved it by providing Ethan with the contact information for the private investigator he'd hired and terminating the contract in front of him. "I want to earn your trust," Dante said. "Not buy it, not force it, earn it." And despite himself, despite 6 years of walls and fear, Ethan found himself softening. One evening, 2 months into their weekly meetings, Ethan's ancient car finally died. Completely, catastrophically dead, seized engine, blown transmission, frame rust that made it unsafe to drive. The repair cost was more than the car was worth. Ethan sat in his apartment, staring at the tow truck receipt, doing math in his head that didn't work. Without a car, he couldn't get to work. Without work, he couldn't pay rent. The walls were closing in again. His phone rang. "Dante." "Hey." Ethan answered, tried to keep his voice steady. "What's wrong?" Dante asked immediately. "What makes you think something's wrong?" "Because I know you," Dante said. "I can hear it in your voice." "What happened?" Ethan closed his eyes. Pride warred with desperation. Pride lost. "My car died." Silence. Then, "I'll be there in 20 minutes. "Dante, you don't have to." 20 minutes, Dante repeated. "Don't argue." He hung up. True to his word, Dante arrived exactly 20 minutes later. He knocked on the apartment door, the first time he'd actually been to Ethan's home. Ethan opened it, and Dante's expression went carefully blank as he took in the tiny space. The water-stained ceiling, the threadbare furniture, the single bedroom that Ethan and Oliver obviously shared, one mattress on the floor. "Don't," Ethan said. "Don't you dare pity me." "I'm not," Dante said quietly. "I'm hating myself for letting you live like this. You didn't let me do anything. This is my life. My choices." "I know," Dante said. He pulled out his phone. "But you need a car, so we're going to fix that." "I can't afford." "Then don't afford it," Dante interrupted. "I'll buy you one." "No, Ethan." "No," Ethan repeated firmly. "I'm not taking your money. I told you that." Dante's jaw clenched in frustration. Then, slowly, his expression changed. "Okay, not my money. A loan. For my company. We have a fleet program for employees. I'll put you on the payroll, legitimate payroll, not under the table. You work in my garage, maintain the fleet vehicles. You get a salary, benefits, and a company car. Standard employee package." Ethan stared at him. "You're offering me a job." "I'm offering you what you've earned a dozen times over," Dante corrected. "You were the best mechanic I ever had, even before everything. My current guys are competent, but they're not you. I've been wanting to upgrade the fleet security features anyway. Custom work. It's exactly what you're good at. This is just charity with extra steps," Ethan said. "No," Dante said. "This is giving you a job you're overqualified for and would excel at. The charity would be giving you money for nothing. This is employment. You work, you get paid. Fair exchange." Ethan wanted to say no, wanted to maintain his independence. But he looked at the apartment around him, at Oliver asleep in the bedroom, at the stack of past-due bills on the table. He thought about the lead in the water, the cold that crept through the walls in winter, the danger of this neighborhood. Pride was expensive, and his son deserved better. "I need to think about it," Ethan said finally. "Think fast," Dante said. "I need someone to start next week." Over the next 3 days, Ethan did his research. He called the company, Castellano Enterprises, and verified that the position was real, legitimate, with actual job duties and legal paperwork. He confirmed the salary was standard for the industry, not inflated charity. He made Dante send him the employment contract and had it reviewed by a free legal aid clinic. It was legitimate. Every part of it. Dante had created a real job, with real work, and was offering it fairly. So Ethan swallowed his pride and called Dante back. "I'll take the job," he said, "but I have conditions." "Of course you do," Dante said, and Ethan could hear the smile in his voice. "Let me guess. No special treatment, no preferential scheduling, and if you fail to meet performance standards, you get fired like anyone else." "Exactly that," Ethan said, surprised. "Then you'll fit right in," Dante said. "When can you start?" Ethan started the following Monday. The garage was a revelation, state-of-the-art equipment, a team of skilled mechanics, and work that actually challenged him. Dante had been honest. The fleet needed upgrading, and the security features required someone with Ethan's specific skill set. For the first time in 6 years, Ethan wasn't just surviving. He was working, really working, using his brain and his hands for something meaningful. The pay was enough to move them into a better apartment. Not luxurious, but safe, clean, with working heat and clean water in Lincoln Park. Oliver got his own bedroom. Ethan could buy groceries without counting every penny. And every Friday, Dante would come by the garage, ostensibly to check on the fleet, but really to see Ethan. They'd have coffee in the break room, talking about work at first, then gradually about other things. About Oliver's latest project, about a book Ethan was reading, about nothing and everything. It felt dangerous. It felt like hope. One Friday evening, 3 months after Ethan started working, Dante lingered after everyone else had gone home. Ethan was finishing up a custom security install on one of the armored SUVs, and Dante sat on a nearby workbench, watching him work. "You have grease on your face," Dante said. "I always have grease on my face," Ethan replied, not looking up from the wiring panel. "It's kind of my aesthetic now." "I missed this," Dante said softly. That made Ethan pause. He looked up. "Missed what?" "Watching you work. You get this look, this focus. Like the whole world falls away, and there's just you and the problem you're solving. You used to get the same look when you were planning security protocols. Like everything was a puzzle you were determined to figure out." Ethan put down his tools. "Dante, I'm not trying to start something," Dante said quickly. I wanted you to know. I see you. I've always seen you. Even when I was too stupid and scared to treat you right." Ethan's chest felt tight. "We can't go back, Dante. Too much has happened." "I know," Dante said. "I'm not asking to go back. But maybe," he hesitated, "maybe we could go forward? Slowly. No pressure. Just see where things go." "I don't know if I can trust that," Ethan admitted. "Trust you? Not yet. Then I'll wait," Dante said simply. "However long it takes." They looked at each other across the garage. 6 years and a lifetime of hurt between them. But also something else. Something that had never quite died. "I should finish this," Ethan said, breaking the moment. "Oliver's waiting for me." "Right," Dante said. He slid off the workbench. "I'll see you Monday." He was almost to the door when Ethan spoke. "Dante." The Alpha turned. "Thank you," Ethan said quietly. "For the job. For keeping your promises. For," he struggled to find words, "for trying." Dante's expression softened. "Always, Ethan. For you, always." After he left, Ethan stood in the quiet garage, wiping his hands on a rag, and for the first time in 6 years let himself consider a future that included Dante Castellano. It was terrifying. It was also maybe possible. Part 3. Coming Home. The nightmare came back on a Tuesday night, 6 months after Ethan had started working for Dante. It was the vault dream, the one where the walls pressed in and the door wouldn't open, and he was screaming, but no sound came out. He woke up gasping, sheet twisted around him, heart hammering so hard it hurt. "Papa!" Oliver's voice came from a doorway. His son stood there in his pajamas, backlit by the hall light. "Your REM cycle was disrupted. I heard you vocalize distress." "I'm okay, baby," Ethan managed, though his hand was shaking. "Just a bad dream." Oliver came closer, studying him with those two knowing eyes. "The vault dream. You have this one every few weeks. Statistical correlation suggests it's triggered by enclosed spaces or loss of control scenarios." "Did something happen at work?" "No," Ethan said. It just happens sometimes." Oliver climbed onto the bed and curled against Ethan's side. For all his genius and analytical nature, he was still 5 years old, still small and warm and perfectly trusting. "You should tell Dante," Oliver said. "He has resources, therapists, medication options. There are evidence-based treatments for PTSD that—" "Oliver, you wake up terrified multiple times per month," Oliver said quietly. "Your quality of life is compromised. That's not acceptable, Papa. You deserve better." Ethan wrapped his arms around his son, breathing in the little kid's scent of him. Shampoo and sleep and innocence. "When did you get so smart?" "I've always been smart," Oliver said matter-of-factly. "You just sometimes forget to listen to me." The next day, Ethan found himself in Dante's office. It was the first time he'd been there, a massive space on the top floor of the building overlooking Lake Michigan, all glass and steel and power. Dante looked up from his desk, surprised. Ethan, is everything okay? Ethan stopped, struggling. I need help. Dante was around the desk in seconds. What happened? Is it Oliver? Are you hurt? No, nothing like that. Ethan took a breath. The nightmares. The PTSD. It's not getting better on its own. I think I need therapy. Real therapy. But I don't know where to start, and I can't. He hated saying this. I can't afford the kind I probably need. Dante's expression went soft. Okay, we'll fix this. I have a therapist, Dr. Rachel Martinez. She specializes in trauma, particularly captivity-related PTSD. She's the one who helped me understand what I did to you. She's brilliant, and she's discreet. I'll call her today. I can't afford. It's covered under your health insurance, Dante said. The company plan includes mental health services. This isn't charity, Ethan. This is using the benefits you've earned. Ethan nodded, throat tight. Okay, Dante echoed. Then, carefully, can I ask what triggered this? You asking now, I mean. Oliver, Ethan said with a weak smile. He gave me a lecture on evidence-based treatment protocols and quality of life metrics. I'm being out-argued by a 5-year-old. Dante laughed softly. He's special. He is, Ethan agreed. Then, before he could stop himself, he asked about you last night. About why we're not together anymore. I told him it was complicated, but he said, Ethan hesitated. He said what? He said that you look at me like I'm the center of your world, and statistically, that level of attachment doesn't fade. He asked if I still loved you. The air in the office went very still. What did you tell him? Dante asked quietly. I told him the truth, Ethan said, meeting Dante's eyes. That I never stopped. That love was never the problem. It was trust, control, fear. But the love, he shook his head, that never went anywhere. Dante's breath hitched. Ethan, I'm not saying we could just pick up where we left off, Ethan said quickly. I'm saying I'm tired of running from this. From you. I want to try. Really try. But I need you to understand. If you ever make me feel trapped again, I'm done. No second chances after that. You won't, Dante swore. He took a step closer, and another, until he was right in front of Ethan. I've spent 6 years learning to be better. To be worthy of you. I won't lock you up, Ethan. I won't cage you. His voice cracked. I'll set you free every day and hope like hell you choose to stay. That's all I've ever wanted, Ethan whispered. To be chosen, not owned. Dante reached out slowly, giving Ethan every chance to pull away. When he didn't, Dante cupped his face with both hands, thumbs stroking along his cheekbones. I choose you, Dante said. Every day, every hour, for the rest of my life, if you'll let me. Prove it, Ethan challenged. So Dante did. He kissed Ethan like a man who'd been drowning and finally found air. Kissed him with 6 years of grief and longing and desperate hope. And Ethan kissed back with equal fervor, clutching Dante's shirt, finally letting himself fall into this terrifying, wonderful feeling. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Ethan laughed shakily. Yeah, Dante agreed. Oliver's going to be insufferable about this, Ethan said. He'll probably give us statistics on successful reconciliation rates. I'll take smug Oliver over you being gone, Dante said. Any day. They took it slow, slower than Dante wanted, but at exactly the pace Ethan needed. They dated, real dates, where Dante picked Ethan up and brought him home after and never pushed for more than Ethan was ready to give. They introduced Oliver to the idea gradually, letting him adjust to his parents being together. Oliver, predictably, took it in stride. This was statistically probable, he announced at dinner one night when Dante had joined them at their Lincoln Park apartment. Your bonding chemistry was evident. I'm pleased this has been formalized. Formalized? Ethan repeated. 1:25 a.m. We're dating, not signing a treaty. Same principle, Oliver said. Mutual agreement to ongoing partnership with defined parameters. He's not wrong, Dante said, grinning. 3 months into their reconciliation, Dante asked Ethan and Oliver to move in with him. Not to the main estate in Lake Forest. Ethan had been clear that the compound with its guards and walls would trigger him, but to a house Dante bought specifically for them in Evanston. A normal house in a good neighborhood, with a yard, neighbors, and space for Oliver to build his inventions. "It's yours," Dante said, handing Ethan the deed. "In your name, not mine. You can sell it, rent it, burn it down, whatever you want. It's yours. You're not moving into my space, Ethan. I'm asking if I can share yours." Ethan looked at the deed, at his name in official print. His house, his space, his choice. "Okay," he said. "Yes." They moved in on a Saturday. Oliver immediately claimed the room with the best natural light for his laboratory. Dante spent the day helping them unpack, and when Ethan found him in the kitchen that evening, assembling furniture with determined focus, something in his chest went soft. "You're doing it wrong," Ethan said, looking at the bookshelf Dante was building. "I followed the instructions," Dante protested. "You follow them backward," Ethan said, taking the screwdriver. "Here, let me." They worked together in comfortable silence, their hands brushing occasionally, and it felt like home in a way nothing had since before everything fell apart. That night, after Oliver was asleep in his new room, Ethan found Dante on the back porch, looking out at the yard. "Thank you," Ethan said, sliding his arms around Dante from behind. "For this. For everything." Dante turned in his arms, pulling Ethan close. "I'd give you the world if you'd let me." "I don't want the world," Ethan said. "I just want this. Us. Our family. That's enough." "It's everything," Dante whispered, kissing Ethan's forehead. "You're everything." A year later, Dante proposed, not with a grand gesture or public spectacle, but quietly, on a Tuesday evening after Ethan had come home covered in grease from working on a particularly stubborn transmission. "Marry me," Dante said, holding out a simple titanium band. Again, for real this time, not because of the baby or the bond, or because it's expected, just because I love you and I want to spend every day of the rest of my life proving I'm worthy of you. Ethan looked at the ring, at Dante's earnest face, at the life they'd built together. "You realize Oliver is going to want to plan the entire wedding according to optimal efficiency metrics?" Ethan said. "I'm counting on it," Dante replied. "And you know I'm still going to be difficult and independent and make your life complicated?" "I'd be disappointed if you weren't," Dante said. "So, will you?" Ethan took the ring, slid it onto his finger. "Yes. Obviously, yes." They were married 3 months later in a small ceremony in their Evanston backyard. Oliver served as ring bearer and gave a speech about the statistical probability of long-term marital success that had half the guests crying with laughter and the other half genuinely concerned about childhood development. But when Ethan and Dante exchanged vows, promising freedom, trust, and choosing each other every day, there wasn't a dry eye in the house. 2 years after that, Oliver got a little sister, a baby girl with mismatched eyes and her brother's serious expression, who Oliver immediately began teaching about basic engineering principles from her crib. And Ethan, standing in the nursery one night with his husband's arms around him and both their children sleeping peacefully, finally let himself believe it. He was home, really, truly home. And this time, he was never leaving. If you love this story of second chances, healing, and found family, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more original BL romance stories. Drop a comment below telling us, would you have given Dante a second chance? Or was Ethan too forgiving? What should our next story be about? Your support keeps these stories coming, so hit that notification bell so you never miss an upload. Thank you for being part of our BL Stories family. Until next time, keep believing in love that fights to be free.